Here we go. SwordSCII.
SwordSCII. Sounds familiar, actually.
Well, they were tweeting at Norton, so maybe that's why they're
Oh,
familiar.
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, did I party invite? That's pretty cool.
You did. I was like, well,
I'll leave it. I don't know
I
how I
guess, you
did that
know,
even, yeah.
I don't want to make cats feel left out, so I'll
Thank
accept
you.
that. All right. Finally got one working, guys. So we are going to be casting. So on Twitter, the name was, I just said it, SwordSCII. In game,
Oh, it's
it,
Neuro. Neuro's here.
well, Neuro's clan, right? Or is that actually Neuro?
That's Neuro. All Might is Neuro.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, cool, cool, cool.
And
Couple
SwordSCII
of
might be
games from
familiar
there.
because, yeah, because I might have played him. Like, I think I've seen the name in game.
Oh, fair enough. Well, in game, they're Nebaru.
Maybe change this name.
Yeah. But awesome. So we're not just getting some high level masters, but we're also getting a famous person in here. Neuro's going to be playing. So is this like Neuro's just his ladder account, or is it some like specific account, like a cheese account or something?
He has two accounts. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if he's supposed to cheese or not on this one. I'm not sure what the deal is, but I know that he plays on both.
Cool. All right. I've always gone with every account that I've ever had was for like a singular purpose.
Hmm.
So I have a casting account, I have a try hard account, I have a cheese account. Uh,
Nice.
but I know other people don't do that. So yeah, this is confirmation. Let's get some introductions done. Let's go with the bottom left. I'm sorry. I was hoping to guess in anticipation of the observer. But anyways, the bottom left as the blue Zerg. The name says All Might, but it is really truly Neuro.
And in the top right hand side, the name says Nebaru, but it is really, truly SwordSCII. Presumably. Unless he submitted
Yeah,
the replay on behalf of someone else.
that's a good point. Sometimes it does happen, but I think specifically he said some of my replays.
Nice.
So yeah, just two different names for I guess the ease here. We'll call All Might the Zerg Neuro. And we'll
Mm-hmm.
call Nabaru Nabaru. Can't help but put on the attempted correct pronunciation of a name that probably actually is just a made up name. Maybe it's Nebaru.
Nebaru.
But I want to go like really like anime style coolness. Nebaru.
I like it.
Thank you.
And yeah, there should be a little bit of a gap here between these players because Nebaru's MMR was something like 4,700, I think. Neuro should be around 51, 52 at least. But again, like you said, I don't know if this is an account where he does something or things funkier than on his other accounts. So we'll be looking out for that too.
Yeah. Actually, Neuro was playing in the Open Cup. I believe on his just like his Neuro account, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So he was facing Epic, who's a pretty darn good North American Terran. Neuro was able to put up one, like the first game was a pretty good fight, and funnily enough, I think it might have been on this map.
Mm-hmm.
To be really related. The second time wasn't nearly as good. Neuro had kind of a lackluster roach attack, but anyways, very recently getting some high level TVZ practice, kind of where I was going with that.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do we perhaps have this MMR discrepancy, which is kind of putting Nabaru up as the I guess David here versus Goliath, but also, yeah, that Neuro has recently gotten into practice with it. So I'm thinking this is a very recent replay, if I looked at the date correctly. Perhaps even as recent as yesterday.
It's got to be on this patch, so it has to be very recent, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. For sure for that. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, Epic. I mean, Epic is a beast, especially in TVC. One of the best North American Terrans, without a doubt. So yeah, that would be really good practice for Neuro if he put up a fight. That's something to be impressed by. I think really, yeah, I wouldn't have expected that. I get crushed by Epic almost every time.
Yeah, my only question when I started casting it was, I was like, well, Neuro, he's not trying to be full-time pro, he's good, right? But a lot of other things that he does on his stream. Epic is usually trying to be like, just like intentionally sole purpose, very, very good player. But I know that sometimes when it comes to the North American players, there's always that question, vacation, school work, real life work, those things. So The only question I had was that Epic been playing recently, and I do think it ended up being a warm-up game because there was some, you know, I think more glaring faults than I would expect from Epic on like his tank production, but that's not really pertinent to this particular game. Just the fact that All Might, aka Neuro, is probably in a good headspace for it. He does get lings inside of Nabarro's main base. It's just really awkward. There's nothing particular, just scouts, but that just gives All Might all the confidence in the world. And actually, he's throwing down a Roach Warren, so maybe we're going to see what I saw, which was that Evolution Chamber getting a +1 carapace and going for a Roach attack.
Exactly, and that scout does tell Neuro that he doesn't need to make spores because this is likely going to be a medevac or a liberator, both of which you don't really need detection for, right? So if this was a tech lab on the starport, that would have been really good information to gather, but without that, he is going to be just fine for the time being. A few links do die out on the map to those Hellions, which may be a little bit of an oversight on the side of Neuro. The creep spread hasn't been amazing either, and that might give entry to these Hellions, but there's a trap getting set up, so good job from Nebaru to identify that and just back away.
Very good of him, actually. The both things were good, right? The test there, just in case Neuro didn't remake Lings. It was a bit of a greedy boy after losing the Lings to a Hellion fight earlier on, and then the realization that there very possibly could be Lings. So you definitely don't want to dedicate. You want to poke, you want to see, you want to be like, hey, did you not make Lings? But really don't want to lose these Hellions yet because you don't have your third CC down. You don't have the Marine production to cover that third CC. So the Hellions still play a very vital role. And as I'm speaking, they actually get surrounded by the Lings. So that's going to make taking the third base a little more awkward for the Terran.
Yeah, but this was no small commitment from Neuro. That's a lot of units. So now he's droning up, but before this, he hasn't really taken a huge advantage on the drone department. He is dropping a Spire, but of a very low gas, now taking 2 gases in his natural and not taking the gases in his third yet. His fourth is also a little bit delayed. So there's a few things that haven't panned out too well for Neuro here, maybe playing overly cautious perhaps this game. So it's still very much an evenish game, I would say.
That's a very good point. Yeah, the drone count's not very good. The upgrade's non-existent. Evolution Chamber is non-existent for Neuro, so he's going to be way behind on there. And of course, despite having a lair, only just recently even adding on the Baneling Nest. If Nabarro, you know, can attack, and they are going to load up 2 medevacs and fly across the map, again, a little dangerous, because maybe those Lings will find an open third base, but that's all right. Then Neuro's not going to have the best means of defense. Of course, they'll probably muster a defense, but it just won't actually be the easiest thing, especially if the 2 medevacs actually ended up going unnoticed. They do get found out, though, so going to tuck himself into a corner, make the Lings obsolete in this case.
Yeah, and just this move out in itself also forces Neuro to make more units, so still the drone disparity is not huge. It's not what Neuro wants it to be. It's 65 workers to 62 on the other side. And Neuro is again over-defending, and if this fourth hatchery is one of its only advantages, so good on Nebaru to kind of like try to pressure this and make something happen on this side. Not gonna be able to, but I like that he is moving out. He moved out as soon as those medevacs came out as well. He couldn't even load the full 2 medevacs, which is, you know, maybe a little bit, it could have been a little bit cleaner, but I love that he is kind of hitting his timings as best as he can.
Exactly. Because even though we see that there's a bit of a macro slip, and it's just, you know, StarCraft 2 is a hard game, right? Even with a bit of a macro slip, there's a lot of other good instincts coming out from this Terran player. So the drops, the attempt to multitask, and then back at home, while they might be missing a couple of macro cycles, they are rallying to a very secure location, making sure that a run-by doesn't ruin their day. And their tank production also has been fairly consistent, which is usually lacking until basically upwards to Masters 2 or Masters 1. So a couple of good things going for Nabarro, but not actually dealing kind of that momentum building damage yet. Just doing things well enough. So Neuro is going to be able to defend, although distracted. Oh, really distracted. The drop in the natural is going to get damage and force the other drop to get more damage too. Oh. There's the good damage.
Yeah, Neuro does split his links eventually, but like you said, it's like a very good distraction, and Neuro is doing all the right things. Out on the map, and yeah, those tanks have been in very good positions as well the entire time. They're very difficult to reach by Roach, Ravager, or anything like that, but also against Lynx, that first tank on the high ground got sieged instantly, in a very good location as his drop was moving out. So he has been doing a very good job of covering their bases, and now a lot of tech labs here on this third. I'm not sure that that is the best place to have those, but preparing for a little bit of a switch, perhaps to add a few more Marauders and eventually perhaps Ghosts. I really like his approach overall.
Yeah. I want to point out one cool thing that Neuro did. He has been contaminating the factory, I think twice, maybe just the once, because eventually Marines did push the Overseer away, but that was pretty neat. And then one downside of what Navarro is doing from the Terran perspective is, well, there's a couple things, right? So first of all, the tanks are no longer as good of units as the mutas come in here. They take out one, they take out the missile turrets. You would have wanted to be adding perhaps Widow Mines and Drilling Claws at this point, and maybe starting not necessarily a transition, but an addition. You can add more splash to the tank numbers you've been building. But then also no fourth command center. So it actually looked like an 8-racks all in to begin with, but you don't get the tech labs on the extra 3 barracks when you do that. You don't get a second factory either, really. And if you do, it's only like after your first attempt to kind of push into the Zerg. Then you get fourth, then you get tech labs. So what Navarro is doing is kind of unintentionally limiting this mid to late game. So this push is actually really quite committed, and it's very dangerous to be this deep on a creep. But those Banelings did not know where they were going. Apparently they weren't targeting anything.
Yeah, an attack move would have been much better than the move command there next to the tanks from Neuro. He will get the cleanup here and defend his creep for the time being as the mutas pull back here. There is now those Drilling Claws and Widow Mine starting on the other side of the map, which is really good, like you were mentioning. I think a Thor wouldn't hurt either against these muta numbers. And Neuro, that is moving across the map with a lot of army here. He is going to be looking for the deny onto the 4th base of Nevaru, and that is a really good move as well.
I feel this floating barracks, by the way. So it looks like Navarro was maybe hoping to swap that off to a reactor or something like that, and then re-rallied elsewhere, so the barracks goes flying because it's up in the air. I do that all the time. It is unfortunately putting him back down on 7 barracks, but not the worst thing in the world. He's once again attacking with a sizable army, but we actually have that big problem that I find happens in about Masters 3 to Masters 2, the lack of factory production. The lack of splash is going to make any of these pushes incredibly difficult to achieve their goal.
Yeah, really good pre-spreads, however, is going to make the Banelings limited in what they can do. Still, it's a little bit too much on the side of Neuro, so Never will get cleaned up for the time being. And yeah, at least those reactor or rather tech-lapped barracks are producing Marauders, so he's being consistent with that. Mines are here now, and they're going to burrow and maybe find connections, but they're not that great. And so Neuro is going to overwhelm here, goes for the tank on the high ground with the Muta, and Neuro is forced to pull back to his main base. This was a very, very good effort from Neuro, but it's looking like all Neuro right now. The supplies are still deceptively close, but Neuro has map control right now, and it's going to be difficult for Neuro to overcome.
Good last-second panic handling of this, though. Navarro was clearly going to be on the ropes, and they actually said, you know what, I think I can handle this. They pull up the medevacs into the main base. The tank gets a couple extra shots before they get sniped by those mutas, and then actually Neuro overstays his welcome quite drastically with those mutas, loses a bunch of them. And why is the supply now in favor of the Terran? It wasn't just those last-second trades. It's the fact that Neuro's only been on sub-60 drones for like most of this game. So trying to commit with this many units, and especially as you start losing out on upgrade advantages, yeah, eventually you just start to peter out there.
Yeah, and he's doing more of that as there's another Ling run by, but good positions, good rally from Nevaru all game long, like that you mentioned it earlier. They're being rallied into good positions, all of his units, so he's going to deal with that just kind of by default. And that puts Neuro further behind, and now Neuro has a commanding lead in this game. I feel like Neuro had the momentum there to really close out things. To obviously, you don't want to be giving out any of those Muta for free, and he gave out like 5 or 6 of those. Those are extremely expensive units, and kind of tunnel visioned onto the natural base, whereas instead he could have gone to the third and just kind of closed things out a little bit more slowly, but perhaps worried about his low economy that you were talking about. And now it's looking like all Neuro here. It's Neuro who has to make a huge comeback to win this.
Yeah, really good. Just kind of standing on the base that they created for themselves, right? So Navarro, as I was pointing out, you know, if if Neuro was playing up to 70, 80 drones, was trying to kind of encompass the map and really just do the Zerg swarm thing, then Nabarro's later fourth command center is problematic, but because it was actually kind of almost like a low econ situation for both of them, the Terran player ended up having that stronger base. They had that stronger stance. So if they could just hold a line against that kind of momentum shift, then they were going to come out ahead, and that's exactly what has happened. Super far ahead. Now, Nabarro just stimming and winning into the creep. No big deal. Even the Banelings coming in one at a time are going to be super ineffective, and Neuro has to tap out. Well played, Nabarro.
Yeah, very well played. And the economy of Neuro was never able to get going. I think that he played a little bit overly cautious in the early game. We were talking about it, right? Like he wasn't droning up. He was being forced to make units, or thought that he was forced to make units. In my opinion, he obviously overmade a few units a couple of those times, right? Overreacting to the 2 medevacs. But that is also to Nevero's credit, just moving out as soon as he could, as soon as they got the opportunity to load up those medevacs, even if they weren't full. And that's what they did, and yeah, takes the game. Very nice.
Very nice indeed. That was a bit tricky there. I was afraid that the attacks weren't going so well for the Terran, which can happen, but yeah, Neuro was actually, he kind of hardly had his feet under him at the end of the day. So, nicely done. That's going to be it for the replay review portion of this stream. Thank you very much to everyone who submitted the replays. Apologies to the people who submitted replays, but then just StarCraft 2 actually couldn't play them out, is basically what happened. But fortunately, we had some backups, so it was really appreciated.